I apologize for all the inconvenience.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? All right. Well, thank you very much for inviting me to speak with you today as we celebrate the induction of new members into the Honorary Society of Phi Eta Sigma. I discovered earlier this week when I composed this keynote address that this honorary society is the nation's oldest and largest honor society for first-year college and university students in all disciplines. I think that's pretty cool. As a historian of medieval Spain and Latin America, and suspecting that Dr. Barathon, who's a scientist, as you all know, had something to do with the invitation for me to speak, I was worried initially that I would have to do some talk related to biology or chemistry or physics, so I was mightily relieved to read that this honor society is composed of students from all academic disciplines. The whole natural sciences thing would have been a total disaster, trust me. I found out as well that over 1 million young scholars have been inducted into this society since 1923. And finally, I learned that the motto on the Phi Eta Sigma crest is knowledge is power. That is, in my opinion, true and awesome at the same time. Now today I'd like to share some thoughts I have about a specific type of knowledge of ourselves, or self-knowledge, and in particular, how self-discovery connects with the ideas of personal exploration, overcoming challenges, and experiencing gratitude for the preciousness of this life and of this world we live in. Now to set all this up, I feel the need to give you some context for the words I will share with you today. So here's the deal. Every other summer, I take IUP students to Spain to participate in a unique and challenging study abroad experience. For about 6 weeks, we assume the role of modern pilgrims along the famous and historic Camino de Santiago. Starting in a small medieval town, border town in southern France, we walk, carrying our clothes and gear in backpacks, almost 600 miles across northern Spain to the majestic and mysterious city of Santiago. We average about 16 miles a day on this walking journey. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking this guy's completely insane. And actually, the third installment of this class starts in 2 weeks from today. I guess it's time for me to get in shape about it. Now, in midsummer of 2011 and 2013, I presided over Las Últimas Cenas, or the final suppers, which concluded the journey from France to Spain of 2 separate groups of student pilgrims from IUP. In 2011, 12 students walked the Camino Frances with me. In 2013, there were 11 students, all undergraduates. Both trips took over a month to complete. And both trips began with stunning opening day hikes across the Pyrenees from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port in France to Roncesvalles across the border into Spain. My memories of both trips are powerful reminders of the joy and the pain, the love and the hate, the hope and the despair, the satisfaction and the disappointment, and the contentment and the regret that pilgrims like me have experienced on the road to Santiago for centuries. I learned over the last few years since completing my second pilgrimage to Santiago in 2011 that every dimension of life is experienced along the Camino. The physical, the mental, the social, the cultural, the academic, the emotional, and so on. These facets of our lives are all part of this extraordinary yet simple human journey. Essentially, we sleep, we eat, and we walk. Indeed, the Camino gives pilgrims plenty of time to think as well. Maybe that is why something so basic, so fundamentally natural as a pilgrimage turns into something so transformative as the days blend into the weeks. The Camino indeed embodies the relationship between mind and body, between our thoughts and our muscles, between our instincts and our reactions. The minds of those who take this incredible journey are indeed at work while on the pilgrimage. Our minds busily observe and analyze and judge seemingly all the time. And much of the rumination has to do with blistered toes and aching feet and swollen ankles, throbbing knees and sore backs. Not uncommonly, the physical ailments we earn on the Camino evolve into storylines that bond us as a group of people suffering together. Daily, we tend to our bodies and often to the bodies of our friends and fellow pilgrims. In St. John in 2011, some grumpy but wise old man told me, "You will suffer." But this prediction had little to do with feet, ankles, legs, or backs. It had mostly to do with the thoughts, emotions, and feelings that would and did flash across our minds as we experienced day after day on the Camino. In large part, we as pilgrims live inside our minds. Our moods and frames of mind change. Our perspectives on things and our general dispositions vary. Our temperaments and judgments shift, and our attitudes and our approaches to the day are transformed just as each moment passes on to the next. Indeed, being mindful and aware of ourselves and of our predicament allows us to open up to the possibilities, countless and ever-changing, that exist around every turn or over every hill and mountain. Living in the present, I suppose, is the real gift we give ourselves, no matter how painful or joyful that nowness is. Now, my method of coping with living and walking with students for 6 weeks along the Camino is not too tight, not too loose. In essence, I try very hard to allow them the leeway to experience this incredible journey on their own terms, but within certain parameters, which of course change and evolve every day. This approach of wanting the students to actively create and live out their own experiences stems from my own belief that real learning, life-changing learning, takes place usually within the context of tribulation and difficulty. And I set out to design a framework that keeps them safe, but that also allows them the liberty to make their own decisions and to work with whatever consequences might arise. Now, I've heard this sentiment time and time again from student pilgrims. I have finally found myself. In that sense, I think that hiking the Camino de Santiago is the highest peak, in my view, of experiential learning. On the spot, every day, every moment, something is happening which enriches the experience of living. We find a place to sleep and we sleep there. We find something to eat and we eat it. We blister our feet and we fix them the best we can. And we walk forward. And then the next day we do the same thing. But somehow every day is completely and totally different. The people change, the landscapes change, the conversations change. Our outlooks and moods and temperaments and attitudes and perspectives and so on. Everything changes as the minutes blend into the hours, which blend into the days and the weeks. But the anchor, the base of our experience remains constant. And that is the goal of arriving to Santiago and completing the pilgrimage, at least this particular pilgrimage. Now, the last thing I said to my students before we disbanded in 2011 and 2013 as a group and began our respective ways home was that in truth, the pilgrimage, the real Camino, starts now. Every day we live on this earth is a journey. It might be monotonous or ever varied, but each day presents a new opportunity to open ourselves to the possibilities of living full and fulfilling lives. Some days we have crummy attitudes. Some days we're lazy. Some days we're full of energy. Some days we have sore ankles and knees. Some days we wonder, What's the purpose of it all? Some days are perfectly content. Indeed, change seems to be the only constant, and how we deal with that reality might very well predict the overall quality of our respective lives. In many ways, I think the pattern of our ordinary lives mimics the days spent walking on the Camino. The memories of those weeks spent walking day after day, however, somehow seem more vivid, more interesting, more representative of how we want our lives to be. The key then is to learn from the experience of walking the pilgrimage to Santiago and bring that appreciation, that gratitude, back into our daily lives back home. And to recognize, finally, how even the simplest of things, like walking, can be so transformative if we just bother to pay attention. So the question is, how does this reflection relate to leadership and to scholarship, two of the important tenets of Phi Eta Sigma? Well, both of these things, leadership and scholarship, are rooted in self-discovery, personal initiative, and exploration. On the Camino, we discover ourselves and motivate ourselves to overcome what ails us. And we explore the landscape of the physical world around us and the landscape of our minds. Like taking a 550-mile hike, leadership takes guts and a willingness to fail, perhaps, and then a willingness to learn from that experience and move on with our lives. Scholarship takes guts too. Like the Camino, taking on a massive or even a small research